Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to a new episode of Business Insider. Tonight, we'll be talking about the state's expansion in the issuance of business licenses with the aim to boost the economy. But first, and as usual, a look at the major stories making the economic headlines for this past week. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Monday, the 1st of May, attended the Labor Day celebrations and marking the occasion, His Excellency the President announced a number of decisions, which included the creation of an emergency relief fund for irregular employment. Social and health accounts dues shall be transferred to it, thus they would be invested and used in emergencies and crises for irregular workers in a sustainable manner. The issuance of a new document called Safety or Aman, which was previously issued in 2017 to cover life insurance and work injuries for irregular workers. Calling upon all private sector establishments, as well as the public sector and the public business sector, to employ persons with special abilities to represent at least 5% of their workforce. To have the Supreme Council for Social Dialogue in the field of employment study the draft labor law presented to the House of Representatives. The promotion of the compliance with international labor standards and to ensure that labor legislation and its implementation comply with international labor conventions ratified by Egypt. To have the Ministry of Manpower launch the National Platform for Labor Market Information. To have ministries and concerned authorities in coordination with the private sector rapidly finalize the procedures aimed at achieving gender equality in the field of employment and ensuring a safe work environment for all, and to have ministries and concerned authorities prepare for future jobs, identify the required occupations in the future labor market and the skills needed for them, and work to develop human resources skills. And Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Tariq Al-Mulla, said that the exploration of liquefied natural gas, LNG, on a spot basis is helping Egypt further capitalize on global gas price hikes. Al-Mulla said in statements on Monday during talks with the Spanish ambassador in Cairo, Alvaro Iranzo, that Egypt's intensive drilling program is seeking to accelerate new discoveries and increase production. He added that this will help support the local market in natural gas exports during the energy transition. Talks between the two sides, Cairo and Madrid, took up oil and petrochemical investment opportunities in Egypt and its role in energy security, as well as the EU's efforts to overcome oil and gas industry challenges. The minister underlined the importance of the East Mediterranean region as a trusted source of natural gas. He noted the country's intention to link discovered fields in Cyprus to the Egyptian liquefied natural gas plants. For his part, Iranzo affirmed the importance of Egyptian LNG exports. He said that the East Mediterranean has become a strategic region which enjoys rich natural gas resources, having the capacity to become a major supplier for Europe. And the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Hala Saeed, held talks on Monday with the Secretary General of the United Cities and Local Governments of Africa, UCLG Africa, Jean-Pierre Bassito, to probe bilateral cooperation in areas pertaining to sustainability of economic and urban development. The two sides also addressed developments of the Decent Life for Africa Resilient to Climate Change initiative, which was launched during the UN Conference on Climate Change, COP27, which was held in November in Sharm el-Sheikh here in Egypt. During the meeting, Minister Saeed emphasized the organization's significant role in transferring Egypt's expertise and the success of the Decent Life initiative into various African countries. For his part, the UCLG Africa Secretary General, voiced hopes to benefit from the Egyptian initiative as a pioneer model to be applied in other African countries, coping with the goals of the Africa Agenda 2063. The UCLG Africa is the umbrella organization and the united voice and representatives of local governments in Africa. It was founded in 2005 in Tshwane, South Africa. UCLG Africa now boasts membership of 44 national associations of local governments from all regions of Africa, as well as 2,000 cities that have more than 100,000 inhabitants. And as such, the organization represents nearly 350 million African citizens. Its headquarters is in Rabat, Morocco, and it enjoys diplomatic status as a Pan-African international organization. Those were the news. Now, dear viewers, we'll be taking a short break, and when we come back, we'll be introducing you to our distinguished guests with us here in the studio. We'll be watching a report about our topic for tonight, the expansion of the issuance of business licenses here in Egypt in order to boost economic performance. Welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you for staying with us. And with us now here in the studio is Mrs. Tasneem Khalil, economic expert. A very good evening to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Saad. It's an honor.
Allow us, Mrs. Tasneem and dear viewers, to watch first a report about our topic for tonight, and then come back and start our discussion. The report prepared by Rasha Abdul Hamid and Abia Hussein.
2023, Egypt's upper consultative house, the Senate, approved a government-drafted bill granting the Industrial Development Authority the power to allow informal industrial projects to operate for a temporary one-year period. This period, however, could be extended for an additional 2 years by the Trade and Industry Minister upon the recommendation of the IDA and after these projects observe preconditions stipulated by the Environment Ministry and Civil Defense authorities. A 32-page report prepared by the Senate's Industrial Committee said the bill comes to serve the state's policy aimed at supporting the industrial sector, either in the form of eliminating obstacles facing industrial projects or helping informal industrial businesses to operate in a legal way. Either way, this will have a positive impact on the national economy. Once approved by the Senate, the bill will find its way to the House of Representatives to be finally discussed and approved. In October 2022, member of the START initiative, Aya Hussein stated in a TV interview the number of industrial projects launched within the initiative is 64, and that they are concentrated in the sectors of home appliance, water treatment, and petrochemicals, among others. Hussein pointed out that the initiative is estimated to substitute products that used to be imported at a cost of $16 billion. She added that a lab has been established to assess the quality of products manufactured locally, ensuring they meet international standards. The main features of the initiative are tax exemption for 5 years and offering lands for investors in the leasing system. In a similar context, board member of the Federation of Egyptian Industries, Kamal Edousoui, said that President Sisi's decision to grant the golden license to manufacturers is very important. In October 2022, Egyptian President Sisi ordered a grant the golden license to all investors applying for it. This came in his speech during the launch of the first International Manufacturing Convention and Exhibition. President Sisi further affirmed the state's keenness to support the private sector, explaining that the state and the private sector are one hand and work is not done in isolation between them, especially with facing challenges and achieving breakthroughs.
All right, welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you for staying with us. And Mrs. Tasneem, the business license issuance and the expansion in it is aimed at boosting the economy and improving economic indicators, and it is targeting the industrial sector more than any other. Could you talk to us about its significance, especially at this timing?
Okay, allow me first to just clarify a small thing, which is what's an industrial license? What's actually an operation license? What's the cause of the government issuing a license? Is the government willing to make obstacles and so on the investor, or they're willing to facilitate the work, but in other phases also they have to keep the surveillance? A government, in order to be a government, it has to save all the people and protect all interests, meaning that the main purpose of a government is to boost economy, but not to neglect the human beings, the citizens themselves. So while discussing what the Egyptian government is doing, actually, it's a kind of, they're stepping further in a sustainable development methodology, and it's getting better and better day by day. Stating first, in the first beginning, by issuing a business. A business, any business whatsoever, is the kind of a business, before being industrial or whatsoever kind of activity, it has first to be allocated according to four main pillars. The first thing is the activity itself. Is it industrial, tourism, commercial, whatsoever the type of it? And the second thing is, where does this business operate? The geographical allocation. And each of these pillars, I will just state afterwards why this is stated like that. And then they also, location, activity, and the investment, the investment it's being used. And last not least, they take care on, the last thing they're taking care of is where that this activity really working with. Okay, stating this, for any business industry to operate, they first have to take a tax certificate and what we call a commercial business register. And last not least, for sure, a certificate to state that he's operating by a company. Okay, all these companies, most of them, they operate under a law that's magnificent law, allow me to say about this, which is 72 for 2017. It's the investment law. Egyptian investment law, it gives us actually kind of incentives in different status. This law was issued in 2017, and the executive regulation of it also was issued. What's brilliant about it, that this law have an article called 24. The article 24, it talks about the golden license, a new notion and something that the government was doing its best to facilitate it and to issue it. What's the golden license? A golden license is a type of a license that's given one shot to a business. These types of business are clearly identified, and they are identified according to priorities that the Egyptian government have stated to. It's not giving all of a sudden. The government is doing it through a huge economic impact assessment that have been defined, and thus they have done it by that manner. Returning back to the business license, okay, what's new? What's new is that, okay, we all know, all people are aware about the great problem that most of economies are facing all over the world, by the way, not only Egypt, which is the informal sector.
Yeah.
For the record, India, for example, they had a huge informal sector, and they made a lot of stuff in order to get them from the informal to the formal. Not only India, Japan, China, United Arab Emirates, by the way, too. All these are giving to great incentives and facilitating on investor. Why? Because they want the informal
economy to join the legal system. Or
definitely, sir. Why is that crucial? Actually, the competitiveness, it's unfair if some people are paying money for the compliance and others are not. Other step is that the informal sector, if it's operating, sometimes this is unsafe for human being. We return back to the prerequisites that we have stated before, which is the geographical allocation. Whenever the government is trying to govern something, it's trying to protect the citizens themselves. Me as a citizen, I have to feel safe with what the government is issuing. So they have to put preconditions for what? For the safety of people, the environment. For example, if you're operating, by the way, in a far place, and that far place is not surrounded by living areas, then the prerequisites shall be easier than living in, of course, in a place where the building and human being are living. And it differs also, for example, heavy industries that have
pollution, yeah.
Yes, definitely, shall not be allocated beside other industries that, for example, not cosmetic, medical, for example, because of the pollution. We cannot put a factory of cement, for example, beside a school.
Within residential areas.
Definitely,
yeah.
that's the right expression. Therefore, the government taking into consideration this all is for the benefit of human beings, its citizens. And what's good is that the investors themselves understand that. And an investor, at the end of the day, he's a citizen. Even if it's a foreign direct investment, we all ally together. So the government, when she put these prerequisites, they took that into consideration. But due to the bureaucratic situation and the huge insights that some investors have arose and have been talking about, the Egyptian government does not stand like that. They've issued a decree, it's a prime minister decree, that actually, there were several decrees, by the way. One in regard to the civil protection, and allow me to talk, that I'm now talking about the industrial sector.
Yes.
When we will return back to the business sector, but just taking more in depth in the industrial sector. The industrial sector, as last year, which is 2022, we would find 100 decisions for empowering the industry, and thus the golden license has been granted to industries, and it's the gold year for industry. While doing that, there were something new that the government is doing, which is the consultation. They're communicating to people. They understand that there are problems, and these problems came from, for example, the approvals of civil protection or the approvals of the environment protection. What's the problem? Maybe because there are a huge number of industries and we want to run very fast and to accelerate this. The government, in order to do so, they issued a decree. This decree states that there are certain prerequisites that people can come and state, write an attorney or something, and state that they would comply with this, and then they go and operate already. In the past, according to Law 15 to 2017, which is the industrial law, they subdivided the activities into two parts, which is pre-licensing system and a notification system, or in other words, high-risk industries and low-risk industries. And that's the fourth type of clarification that the government is taking. The type of risk that the government, that the
business itself is subject to.
Yes, that's the right expression. So according to which the government, what does it happen, is that both businesses, because they found out that these businesses are operating very well, which is the notification, the other ones, which is when they have stated the gap analysis, when the government it made a gap analysis between the experts and imports for the Egyptian market, and then they defined certain commodities that have a huge impact on our trade balance, according to which they have an idea and a methodology and a plan, which is we have to localize these manufacturers and to produce inside our country. To do so, they have to empower them. And empowerment does not only mean giving financial incentives. Incentives could be financial and non-financial, by the way. The simplification of procedures is
an incentive on its own.
Yes, sir. The time the investors are taking in order to go through this stuff, and time is money for investors, sir. And that's what the government is aware of. And that's why they accelerate the whole situation. And they identified this and they issued that decree, which is allowing them to do so. Not only that, they also were giving the informal sector a brilliant and a golden chance to expand, and to not only expand, to become sustainable. Why? Because if you became formal, you will have you will benefit from the incentives, by the way. The Egyptian government had great incentives for industries.
Okay, here's an important question. Those who are part of the informal economy and plan or intend or want to join the legal system, will they have to pay any compensations for what they did before, or is it, they are welcomed, you are into the legal system, we don't want any money from you for the prior activities?
Okay. This step allow me to say that according to the law, that has been issued and according to the amendments had been implemented on the law, no, sir, they would not face this obstacle. And sometimes people say that this is not fair. No, it is fair. Because you're taking... Yes, it is, because you've been... Even if he's been operating and the other formal business were operating online, these informal business, in order to go to the formality, you will benefit more. He will comply to what you're having, and both of you will have common feet, so the competition would be equal, the balance of that. Another thing, that these people actually, if they found out what they will gain from getting this license, allow me to state a couple of incentives, or a couple, I will not even state the incentives. All people know that there are many types of incentive people have. I will just let you know small benefits of it. For example, marketing is a great opportunity for anyone to expand and to get the suppliers and demand, where to go and who to buy. Okay, when you talk about it, actually, you cannot go to any to make any publication without having a tax number, and this is according to the law that has been issued. The second thing, now after having the electronic
digital
receipt and so on, you could not actually go like that. No, Nafiza, you cannot operate in the market anymore if you're not officially. A third thing, which is the industrial commercial, or even the industrial register or the commercial register. The industrial register grants you the right to have incentives and to enter your production needs with a lower rate on taxation and a great... the government is helping you and assisting you in that. She gives you also subsidies in regard to the electricity and so on. If you are an SME, small, medium enterprises, then you will gain a perfect incentives. Loan 152 for 2020, which is the SMEs law. That's a great opportunity for any SMEs to operate. What have been done and issued by the government is giving you a golden chance for giving a whole year for the informal sector to become formal.
And it's only logical to presume that much of the informal economy is SME.
Definitely, that's it. Not only that, if you could just recall our presidential decree when the president stated that we will have virtual companies. This is fascinating. This is allowing the technology, the new invention. Not only that, we have also to understand that the small, medium enterprises, this is the golden chance for them to operate, develop the innovation and the issuance and of any investment of any company. Now it's the right state. Why? Because despite any situation, it's only the inner business and the government and the industry is the only solution, and that had been arose. Not only, but the industry shall not work alone. You have to support it with others. Okay, so it's a value chain. The government also does not neglect, by the way, the foreign direct investment. They're getting certain incentives in order to get foreign direct investment. But in order to the foreign direct investment to operate, there must be a value chain. This value chain they're getting in, they're giving other thing, which is the small, medium enterprises to give them. The key point here, if we have a real value chain and we made a real connection between both, this will make sustainability of demand for the commodity that the small, medium enterprises are doing, thus the economics of scale, thus at the end of the day, the macro will be small and the small will be medium, and hopefully the medium will be a large or a multinational corporation within a few years.
Right.
So the steps are taken. They're hopefully they're great steps and they're well studied, and this came from an economic impact assessment. And if you just stay back and look at the Vision 2030 and Vision 2050 of the government and how they're taking steps, you'll find it's a huge plan that has been written, and they're walking through it, despite the fact that there's some external factors affecting it.
A lot of challenges, of course.
Yes, but as you said, they're having steps, and moving on is way better, and that's what we are willing.
Sure. So how is this how are these steps helping not only in boosting the economy, but also in achieving sustainable development goals? That's within, of course, the vision of, or the strategic vision of the country.
Okay. The main goal of the sustainable development, by the way, one of them is the economic prosperity of people and equality and better education, better health, and so on. If we go back to what we were talking about, if we have a real circle economy and all people are operating in that economy, when people have a higher level standards, meaning that people are working to their high level and standards, so they're going to get better education. When you have better education, you develop better and so on. Not only that, the government does not neglect the health, by the way. It's operating very well in the health situation, especially they're getting I cannot recall it, I mean, which is...
Yeah, the insurance.
Insurance, yes,
yeah,
I'm
health
sorry.
Insurance
yes,
program.
definitely.
Yeah.
So the health insurance steps that's being taken into consideration, the initiatives the government is trying to state, not only that, the CSR, it's a new notion actually that I found out that the Egyptian government is taking into consideration with the industries, the technical education, the way to have workers that are technically empowered. Discussing this, we can develop that many of the huge multinational corporations and large factories are developing certain schools for technical education to support. Not only that, we cannot neglect the role of the non-governmental organization as well supporting in that. So the government is having a sustainable plan. How can we say something is sustainable? Sustainability means that when it starts, what's really interesting in the initiative stage, all people are happy and they're trying their best. To continue in what you're doing is great. To succeed in it is impossible. To proceed in it and just getting to the end on what you're having a purpose with a clear KPIs. I do understand that the government have clear key performance indicators, and this is not, and this is new. When the Egyptian budget, the government budget itself became not only sectors, it became according to key performance indicators. That's an indicator that the government started to make sustainable spending even. The way they are getting the projects itself, they state in their early beginning, we will take into consideration the environment, the green, then COP27 came, then they are getting the golden license. Even when COP27 had ended, they did not end it. There are still incentives for the green project. They issued the golden license, taking into consideration a certain incentive that shall be granted, the golden license shall be granted to the green economy, eco-industrial parks. This is an initiative that the government is trying to state, by the way, and they're taking a step in order to develop an eco-industrial park. The green economy and the green industries, as we state, these are granted these
automatic licenses?
Yeah, golden license.
Golden license.
Yes, these are getting golden license. When we call about automation, the government itself understands the great importance of automation, technology all over the world. Egyptian government is aware of the sustainability they want to do, and if they've kept on using papers all over the places, this will not be sustained. The only way to sustain it and to be assured that all people are dealt in the same and equal field, and that the processes are simplified and according to the best practice, and they're made in certain way. They're taking the steps of automation, and not only internal system automation of the governorates or the government entities, they're taking it further to what we call the e-government. Nowadays, you can simply go online and issue your license, by the way, issue your ID, and not only that, issue your own company. This became, a dream came true. Hopefully, in the near future, I do believe, and this is what the government is always talking about, that there shall be an e-licensing. You can have an e-licensing, the e-signature. All of this indicates that this is sustainability in what they say. They have a dream, they started the dream, and they're going through on to reach it. So
Beautiful.
This is what we will, yes it is, hopefully,
Right.
inshallah.
Inshallah. I've enjoyed really listening to you, Mrs. Tasneem Khalil, economic expert. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your informative input. And dear viewers, thank you for watching us, and next week, same time, inshallah, is a new episode of Business Insider. Until then, have all the best and goodbye.